Okay, to finish revising Beowulf, this is a collection of key questions to revise the poem. The first question is, which Greek word does epic come from? Because you know that the origin of this word is from the Greek language. So an epic poem the word epic comes from the Greek epos, which means transmitted orally. In fact, we know that the epic poems were initially transmitted orally by the bards. How did the epic poem were composed? Okay, the bards composed epic poems to give honor, to celebrate famous kings or warriors, okay, belonging to their country, to celebrate their country. Then the poem was transmitted orally from one generation to the other. And normally, as in the case of Beowulf, it was written also after a very long time, okay? But how can we define an epic poem? An epic poem is a long narrative poem, okay? Or a long narrative composition, okay? Why long? Okay, because differently from other poems, which were shorter, an epic poem could include hundreds or thousands of lines of poem. What is an epic poem? Okay, so this is the answer. What are the type scenes? In an epic poem, we normally find the type scenes. The type scenes are typical scenes that we can find in all the epic poems. Okay, for example, the banquet, the funeral, the fight, okay, the meeting of the hero with his with other warriors, okay, so the marriage. So the typical scenes that we find in all the epic poems, of course, including Beowulf. What is the epic poem Beowulf? Beowulf is a poem, an epic poem, invented, we can say, or created for the first time approximately in the 7th century. It was created to celebrate probably a king who lived in this period, lived and died in this age, and it was then transmitted orally from generation to another generation. Okay. It is, we can say, the oldest surviving poem in Old English. Probably it was not the only one, but it is the only one we have nowadays, we found. When was it composed and then written down? It was composed, as we said, approximately in the 7th century and written down in the 11th century by the monks. The story, where is the story set? The story is set into different countries. First of all, Beowulf is a Scandinavian hero, but the story is set in Denmark, where the hero arrives to fight against the monsters, and then in Sweden, where he comes back home after defeating the two monsters in Denmark. So we have part of the poem in Denmark, part of the poem in Sweden. What happens in the poem? We can say also the plot of the poem. Hrothgar, who is an important king of Denmark, calls Beowulf because his country is threatened or menaced by two monsters. Beowulf arrives and he immediately defeats the first monster, Grendel, but is also attacked by his mother, who wants to revenge the death of her son, and Beowulf kills also Grendel's mother. His victory is highly celebrated by the king, Hrothgar, and then Beowulf comes back to his country. The second book opens when Beowulf is already a young king in his country, but his reign is threatened by a dragon, a Spitfire dragon. So he faces the dragon, is successful in wounding the dragon, but is wounded himself and he dies together with the dragon. The soldiers organize a very important funeral, a magnificent funeral, and his body is fired on a pyre. What society is described in the poem? In this poem, as well as in all the other epic poems, the society described is the aristocratic society. Aristocratic and elevated society, kings, and also military society. So these two strata of society are widely described. Why do we say that it is an epic poem? Basically, an epic poem is very long. If we find a poetic composition which is not very long, it isn't an epic poem. And if we find a poem, for example, the Canterbury Tales, in which we don't find heroes, monsters, in which the narrator is internal to the poem, it is not an epic poem, because in the epic poem, the narrator is external. It is set in a very wide land, in an unknown time, no definition of the moment. There are heroes, monsters, great deeds of the warriors, and normally the end is not happy. There is not an happy ending, but there is also an important message. The message consists in the ideals of the society, the warrior society. And in the warrior society, the important values, the heroic values were that of being glorious, of being strong, of being brave, and also faithful, of giving friendship and courage to defend the country and the king also. So all these elements are completely absent in other poetical composition. Now, if we go to page 51, we try to make a summary of the passage we read. Okay, so open page 51. Okay, the title is Beowulf and Grendel the Fight. If you remember, in this passage, Beowulf faces Grendel for the first time and is successful in the fight. In this first part, from line 1 to line more or less 16, okay, Grendel arrives into the mead hall. You remember what was the mead hall? Okay, it was a place, the hall, the huge place, the huge room in which the people, the warriors, gathered. They drank a lot of meat, they got drunk also, and they also ate a lot of meat. Okay, so they the Anglo-Saxons liked feasting, and this is the typical place where they had their feasts. So in this first part, Grendel arrives and fights against Beowulf after having killed, if you remember, one of his warriors. Then in the second part, this one from line 17, time and again, okay, the warriors tries to help Beowulf, who is fighting against Grendel. In the third part, Beowulf finally wounds Grendel to death. Okay, so Grendel is mortally wounded. And in the last passage, in the last part, okay, in the last lines, in the last lines here, we have Beowulf, who has successfully freed the herald, which was the hole, the mead hole, from Grendel. Okay, but he hasn't fought against Grendel's mother yet. Okay, so we'll do that later. In this first passage, he does. He kills Grendel. Okay, when we read the passage, we also explained the meaning of these highlighted parts of the text, but we are now revising. Okay, so the pink, okay, passages, the pink highlighted words, open claw and the captain of evil, and let's see if there are any others. No, I don't think so. They are referred, so 1, 2, and 3, captain of evil, the creature, open claw, okay, they are referred to Grendel. So this is the way he calls the monster, okay, and also the things that the monster is doing, open claw. Then we have the red words, the words in red, okay, and these are Grendel's actions: stuck, suddenly grabbed and mauled, bolted down, gorged, eaten up, venturing closer. Okay, so it is they are the action of Grendel. So they are vivid because you see that they are described with violence. Ok, mastica, ingurgita il succo pieno beve, eaten up, la vita dalle sue piedi e dalle sue mani. So it's really, really very vivid, okay, strong. Then we have Alert's hero, hand grip harder than anything. These passages, these parts highlighted in blue, are referred to the hero, so to Beowulf. Then there are the yellow, okay, words are the action of Beowulf. The green ones, okay, are the soldiers, okay. Beowulf's warriors joined the struggle. They, the warriors, and what they did, ok, si uniscono alla battaglia. Their actions are the green, okay, ones. So these are highlighted and are the warriors, and their actions are written in green again. Then we have dot, dot, dot. Let's see, where are they? Okay, yeah, conjured to harm from the cutting edge of every weapon. Okay, this is the magical action, the supernatural power of the master. Okay, because he had eliminated the cutting edge from the weapons. Ok, quindi aveva stagliato le spade, non tagliavano più. Ok. Then there are the underlined captain of evil, for example. I don't remember if there's another one. No, I don't think so. Okay, so the one underlined in blue is the captain of evil is a kenning. Okay. Then there is the vivid and dynamic language, which is the one with written in, okay, sinews split, bone lapping burst. Okay, this is very strong as an expression because it says i tendini che vengono sinews split, che vengono completamente dilaniati. Ok. So very, very dramatic. Then we have the alliteration, for example, sinews split, bone burst, glory, grendel, fan, faddly. Okay, these are alliteration. So the alliteration is, remember, the repetition of the same consonant at the beginning of a word, of consecutive words. Then we have the yellow passage, which is the next page, the highlighted yellow part. Okay, this one, which are the hero's virtues. Men were lately landed, proud and sure, purged the captain from harm, happy, courage. Okay, so these are the characteristics, positive characteristics of the hero. And lately we have the setting in the hall, night work. Okay, so we have an idea of where the story is set. Okay, a very little idea. Okay, that's all.